Good afternoon and welcome to round 3 of the Intergalactic Colosseum. The game is Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. The mod is Forged Alliance Forever, and we are about to get underway with our third week of the IGC Season 7. Alright, we are all excited to see how the Empire clan gets underway this week, because so far they are not on the scoreboard because they haven't managed to actually get any games yet. Let's just quickly throw up a little bit of a scoreboard there, and we can see how the teams are standing. Now bear in mind, these are reflecting the fact that E and, well, UEF is actually sitting on 0 there. That's interesting. But the E clan sitting on 0, well, that is because they haven't managed to get a round in. Alright, let's get into the action really quickly and waste no time. What we want to do now is have a quick look at the maps we're going to be seeing today. So we have got in our 1 versus 1 matchups, we've got Vulcan's Reach, followed by Canis River, and then in the third game, if necessary, for the best of 3s for 1v1, we have got Arctic Refuge. Then in the 2 versus 2 games, we have got Roanoke Abyss, and that'll be followed up by a 2 versus 2 on Rigor 6 Highlands, and then we'll jump up to the 3 versus 3 format and we'll see Stairway to Heaven for that, which will be interesting. And then finally we will have Wonder Open for the 4 versus 4. Alright, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump straight into the action. First up, we have got 1 versus 1 rounds, and well, we're going to start with Mephi and Ajax. So let's head straight into the action and see how those two guys are going to get on. Alright, here we go. So we have got Boar. For the Breaker Wishcount Foundation clan, we have got Mephi in his customary green color in the bottom right here. He has opted for Cybran, currently rated at 1900, and he is going to throw down his first land factory, get a little bit of power and eco up underway, and get his economy into shape. Opposing him, we have got Ajax for the Voice of Reason clan, rated at 2100. He has opted for Seraphim this time. He is going to throw down his first land factory, and interestingly is not adjacent to any of those mixes, so he's not going for the adjacency, and he's also not going for any early PGNs. He's going to be heading straight out towards that hydro, and that's going to be perhaps a super aggressive hydro build, and we'll see how that compares to Mephi's more traditional build with some T1 PGNs down in the bottom here. Alright, let's check on Mephi and see how his expansion plans are going. Well, he does have a little bit going out towards that Hydra. He is going to grab that guy, and then he's going to start throwing down an air factory beyond that. And, well, he's going to be moving his ACU a little bit further in the build order, and that's going to be after he grabs these core mixes. So far, Ajax doing very nicely. In fact, Mephi sitting on just 1 mass per tick for quite some time, because it's taken him a long time to get those mixes under construction, and that is going to be a little bit slower, so we'll see how that is going to compare for him. I'm just going to fix the minimap over here on the right, and let's carry on. Alright, so we have got Mephi starting to make his way out, and we've got quite a big array of construction that he has decided to throw up there. We can see a lot of air factories and a lot of power grid, so we can expect maybe something quite aggressive in terms of air from him. And well, for Ajax, he's going to go straight for some early scouts, so there's Selene heading out across the ditch, and he is going to bring his ACU up. Are we going to see a bit of Zooey spam? I wouldn't be surprised, because he is Seraphim. His build order is going to be a couple of air factories in there, land factory perhaps, and well, probably not quite so aggressive on the air build. Alright, how are we going for early expansion? Because it is critical. Vulcan's Reach is interesting in that there's a couple more expansions over to the sides here, and you do need to have pretty good map control in order to hold it. These guys here are pretty vulnerable to raids, especially early on. Any expanding engineers like this guy here can get picked off, and that can cause quite a delay in getting engineers back out to the front line to continue your build. Alright, there is a hunter out there for Mephi. He's going to see what he can find. We've probably got these Selens cloaked by now, so of course Ajax setting those guys to hold fire does mean that they will be cloaked and invisible until you get Omni coverage, which in the early game is pretty much never, unless your ACU happens to walk along. Alright, we've got the expanding engineers coming out here from Ajax. So far, Mephi doing a slightly better job. He ticked over to 13 mass per tick, just a little bit earlier than Ajax did, and there is also an Air Scout here for Mephi. So Mephi is going to get eyes on the base for Ajax a little bit earlier. So far, Ajax just grabbing a little bit of early intel with these Selens, with the radar coverage that they provide, and not getting any air out over the top so far. He does have one interceptor though, and that'll be to combat any bomber that Mephi decides to throw his way. And does it look like he's going to be throwing a bomber together? Well, yes. So he's going to send that bomber out, but there are a couple of interceptors going to be online for Ajax by that time. So Ajax now sitting on 17. He's managed to take the advantage a little bit with that early expansion. He's got just a little bit further ahead with his engineers. We can see engineer already all the way out there. He's going to be able to grab some reclaim and then carry on with the expansion. And on the right hand side, he's grabbed those extra mixes there as well, which is just coming online there for Mephi. So just a few seconds ahead in the engineer expansion there for Ajax. Ajax looks like he's getting a little bit more online in terms of getting units out across the big dried up lake, and those guys are going to be able to intercept anything that is trying to expand here for Mephi. And so far there's not a lot in line, well, in terms of defenses for Mephi, so that could be a little bit of a problem if a number of FAMs decide to hit at any one point. That is going to be able to push through the expansion for Mephi. And in terms of ACU movement, we've got Ajax coming all the way out the front here. He's probably going to try something reasonably forward, get himself established in the center and grab those extra mixes in the middle. And Mephi is just starting to head out that way. He stopped to build a land factory on his way, so he is going to grab that and then continue out. We see a couple of units coming in here, and well, Mephi is actually having to retreat that engineer because it is vulnerable. We can see there's a couple of Mantis coming in to defend. They will be able to take care of that FAM if they can get there in time, but it looks like Mephi may have forgotten about that engineer. It is now coming under fire from both the Selen and from the FAM, and that is not going to do too well, and he is going down into the red, and poof goes that expanding engineer. So the next closest guy Mephi has got for expansion is out here, and well, that's in contrast to Ajax's nice control. His engineer all the way out here, it hasn't been taken out yet, and we see a transport actually dropping in the top right as well, so he's getting some pretty good map control early on. These guys are actually neck and neck for eco right now, 22 and 23 mass per tick, and there is, well, a little bit of an advantage for power in Mephi's camp, so that'll be because the extended air build that he is going for, it's putting him a little bit behind in land production though. He is going to have to make sure those bombers pay off, and that expanding engineer does go down now before it gets that PD up, and that bomber has now been fairly useful. Unfortunately, Mephi's bomber goes down to Ajax's interceptors just the same. It looks like Mephi will be able to hang on to air control just a little bit, but the damage has been done now with those engineers down and building. Starting to get a little bit more steam in terms of economy for Ajax. So Ajax now sitting on 41 mass per tick to 25 for Mephi. So Mephi definitely starting to pay in the lack of expansion there. It's starting to hurt his eco just a little bit, and he does have his ACU coming up to the center. He will be able to grab a little bit of that reclaim, but of course Ajax has already been out there for some time. He will have grabbed a bunch of reclaim. Let's just see how much these guys have picked up. We've got 1,600, 1,700 in the bank for Ajax, and only 1,300 from Mephi, so there's a little bit of an advantage there to Ajax. And well, that's a nice stream of Mantis. Of course, they're heading right past that Selen because they cannot see him. He is cloaked at the moment, and they're going to head out and try and do some damage. That could be a little bit of a problem for Ajax because he doesn't have anything over this left-hand side yet. And well, there was actually a little bit of radar coverage because the bomber was just overhead for Mephi, so he will be aware that there is not much in the area. And we can see the reaction there from Ajax. He is throwing a bunch of FAMs down that way to try and intercept those Mantis. It looks like there's probably just enough in that group to take them out if they can get there in time, which doesn't look to be a problem. So that will be a hold, and a little bit more reclaim dumped over on Ajax's side of the map. Let's go back and have a look back at home and see how we're going for T2. Well, we can see there is actually a T2 HQ there for Ajax, so he has made the shift. So we will be seeing some Ilshivers on the field fairly soon because he is Seraphim. And back here at home for Mephi, have we got a T2 upgrade? It doesn't look like anything is completed yet. So Mephi just lagging a little bit, and that's probably due to the lack of eco. So now 47 to 29 in favor of Ajax. So Ajax starting to run away a little bit in terms of that eco generation. And I'm not sure if Mephi is aware just how far he is behind. He has managed to secure this area. He's got some engineers down, but those guys are not yet grabbing the mass. So radar is up first. first, then a land factory just to secure the area, and then out to grab those mass extractors. But he is a wee way behind. He's managed to tick up to 31 mass per tick to the 43 of Ajax, but still just a little bit of a problem. And there's a nice little raiding party here for Ajax, which is heading down, and there's not a lot to stop them. They will be able to run through this little group of Mantis and destroy this expansion, and I'm not sure if there is a lot that Mephi can do to stop it. He's got a few Mantis which are going to be in pursuit now, but I'm not sure those guys are going to be able to take care of the problem. And there's actually a bomber coming in as well, and no AA online in the area. There were a few interceptors around from Mephi before, and we can see the reaction there. Here they come across the map, and they will be able to take that bomber down before it does too much damage. But unfortunately, this group of Thams will be able to do a lot more damage, and actually these Mantis have completely missed if their target was that raiding group, and that is a problem. So now we've got a pretty good sized T1 army here for Ajax. We are just starting to see some Ilshivas rolling out onto the field as well, so it looks like Mephi is pretty soon going to find himself a little bit out-teched. How are we going for T2 back at home? There we go, there is his HQ back here. It is just getting underway with a very interesting unit. You may recognize that little icon there, 33% completed on that build. So it could be a little bit of a recognition there for Mephi that he is a little bit behind. He is going to try and perhaps swarm Ajax's ACU, because Ajax is a little bit out in the open. He does have a number of T1 units, but he would be able to get caught out right now. If Mephi was to move in, there is definitely enough air coverage to stop any bombers causing problems. There is also the option of a couple of T1 gunships for Cybran, which could aid in the cause, and there is a lot of Mantis on here. There's actually enough in here. If he got his ACU in right against Ajax, he got all of these Mantis in, he would have a very, very good chance of taking Ajax's ACU out. He is looking very exposed right now. Ajax still in the lead with the eco. He's got that T2 shift a little bit earlier. He has definitely got the advantage in terms of the gameplay for attrition, but he is looking very, very risky right now. If his ACU gets caught, and I think that's probably, well, I thought he was actually heading back to base, but it looks like he's actually going to be content to sit out on the front line, and I'm not sure that he's aware exactly how much is online there for Mephi, and no, he doesn't have any radar coverage at all. So I suspect he might be in for a little bit of a surprise any minute now, because there are about, well, it looks like about 30 odd Mantis in this group. If the Mantis and the ACU can get in there, tangle up Ajax's ACU, that is going to be the end of the game. So let's see how this plays out, because if it was down to just the army versus army, I have no doubt the extra eco and the Ilshivas that Ajax has is going to be a huge problem. But now Ajax is starting to come under fire. We've got a whole lot of Mantis wrapping themselves up, just waiting for an overcharge. Does Ajax have overcharge? Let's just check that really quickly. He does not have overcharge, so he's now starting to take fire, and he's actually tangled up. The pathfinding is causing him headaches. Those Mantis are starting to wrap him up, and Mephi looks like he might be able to come from behind and take out Ajax's ACU. Ajax down into the yellow now. I'm not sure. Well, here we go. We've got two fire beetles online. They are going to come in. Are they going to get close enough? They are landing, well, quite a distance from the ACU. Mephi changing the drop order on that. He is just about out of Mantis. They are very, very thin on the ground. Those fire beetles coming in, and they get destroyed. So unfortunately, the fire beetles standing still for just a little bit too long, and they go down. There is no Ilshiva in there to support, and it looks like Mephi is not going to quite be able to clinch the kill here, which is a big problem because he invested quite a lot in that initial push, and it looks like it's just not going to pay off, and it is going to not go his way. That is extremely unfortunate. Those two fire beetles would have done a world of hurt if they had been a little bit closer and if they had been able to get into play. So unfortunately for Mephi, that just didn't happen. He does still have air control though, and there's not a lot of ground-based AA, and that Jester is going to sit there and pepper away. He's down to 5,100 HP, and we've got some more Jesters coming in. It looks like Ajax is making a run for his home base, where he is going to be a little bit more supported in terms of air control, and those Jesters are being forced away now. So those guys are getting out of there. Ajax escaping with just over 5k health. Has this push given Mephi any advantage? I'm not sure that it has, because Ajax is now sitting on just about 60 mass per tick to 37 for Mephi, and Mephi is about to get a nasty little surprise of a T1 army landing in his home base, where he doesn't have a lot of units concentrated right now. And although he did get that T2 shifter earlier on, he hasn't managed to get a lot of rhinos on, and he's starting to get a little bit of pressure on his economy. Now he's going to have to redirect some of those forces away from the front line, and those Ilshivas Ilshivas just starting to get to work on the T1 army. Those guys are going to be very, very problematic. Of course, the extra range on the Ilshiva, very deadly to those T1 units. They will be able to walk through quite a large swathe of T1 and not really face too much opposition. I think the best chance Miffy would have now would be to use his ACU to overcharge those guys, but the ACU is a lot slower and they are not, well, the Ilshivas are going to escape and he will need a transport to try and bring the ACU back to kill those guys. So he will need a T2 transport, that means T2 air, and that is not something that Miffy has managed to get online yet. We can see just an array of T1 factories. So the ACU is pretty much out of play for the time being for Miffy because those Ilshivas have escaped, and there's another pack of Ilshivas. They are heading over this way. They're going to walk straight through anything they find, and it looks like Ilshivas are going to be a little bit of a problem. Miffy is going to be able to hit in here, but he does need some Medusas. He actually does have a few in the mix here, so those guys can outrange this T1 PD and take it out. So a bunch of T1 going down in defense there for Ajax, trying to hold on to that. Miffy bringing those Jesters out, so Miffy definitely not out of the game yet. He's definitely behind an eco, but he's still fighting. He is going to try and use those Jesters to take out the Ilshivas, and if he can do that, he's actually going to drop himself a nice little chunk of reclaim just outside his base, although most of the engineers in the area have been destroyed by those Ilshis, and he will have to dispatch new ones from home. Let's have a look at what Ajax is doing back at home. He has thrown up a bunch of TAC missile defense. He's actually put his ACU on upgrade right now, so he's trying to get a little bit of that HP back. And what has he got? He has got a T3 mix. That is very interesting. He has gone quite hard on the eco, and for some reason getting a T3 mix over a T2 upgrade on any of the other mixes, which is an interesting choice, but it does seem to be working for him. He is now sitting at almost twice the eco of Miffy. He's sitting on 63 to 35 and 1.2k power to 1k, so just a small advantage in the power game. There is one Ilshiva bravely trying to defend against this horde of Mantis. I don't think it's going to be quite enough, and that is going to mean that this expansion does go down to Miffy's forces, which is going to help even it up a little bit because Miffy, of course, does still hold the bottom left corner, but he is still severely behind. He has got a bunch more Jesters coming in. So far, Ajax not really wanting to commit to any ground-based anti-air, so he is relying on his interceptors, which is not a really good idea right now because he is pretty outnumbered in the interceptor game, although he has managed to accrue quite a good number, and with a bit of micro, he would be able to get in there and take out Miffy's Air Force. We've got this force up here. Now, having taken that out, he is choosing to stand still, and he's perhaps forgotten about those guys just a little bit. And he's going to use his Jesters to just harass the eco. And Miffy actually doing a really fantastic job of catching up. He's done a little bit of ticking back in his base on his mass extractors. He's up to 53, just ticking over 55 mass per tick. So he is looking like he is still in this. He was a little bit behind, and he could be behind in the production game. Well, he definitely is behind in the production game because he has got nothing to match all the Ilshivas. His base is pretty bare of units at the moment, and if these Ilshivas were to head straight for the main base, that would be pretty much GG. But instead they're going back up to try and reclaim the top right corner. They will be able to clear out all of these units that Miffy has got sitting there, but they will have to then turn around and come back and do a little bit of damage. A little bit of a scouting mission there from Ajax. He will see exactly how undefended that base is. It is only the commander sitting there, and he is going to see that there is now T3 on the field. So Miffy pushing straight for T3. I'm not sure if we saw a single Rhino on there, but we probably did, and I probably missed it. But in any case, there is now T3, so we are starting to see loyalists pop out on the field. So those guys are going to be an excellent counter for the Ilshivas that Ajax is throwing his way. He's going to continue doing work with those Jesters. They're going to continue to just grab a few kills. There is a little bit of flak floating around though, so the Jesters do want to stay away from that guy. But once the loyalists do hit the field, and they are very fast, so hitting the field now, they are going to start doing a lot of damage. And so Miffy's still in this. He's actually, well, he was looking like he was just ahead. It might have been a little bit of power stall. No, it was actually reclaim. So Ajax sitting on 59 and now 63 for Miffy. So Miffy has managed to overtake in that eco game, and he has managed to get to T3 and grab the loyalists, which he is starting to spam. He's got 4 or 5 coming up towards the front line now. So those guys are going to be pretty deadly, and Ajax is going to have seen that, and he will be having to shift up to T3 himself. And what is he doing? Well, it's actually unassisted. Actually, where is that HQ? There we go. Why am I blind? Alright, so he's actually now still sitting on T2 and he hasn't started that T3 shift. So it could be a little bit of a problem for him. These loyalists are a little bit unanswered right now. There's now 5, 6 in the area and those guys are going to be able to do a lot of damage to that army. But it looks like Mephi might be choosing just to skirt around them and get back in here and do a little bit of damage. He does need to stay away from the ACU because overcharge, but he has now got a little bit of an opportunity to use those loyalists, and he's actually looking like he's going to come back and do a little bit of a pincer movement on this T1 and T2 army here for Ajax. The loyalists starting to pepper away at those Ilshivas and doing a fairly good job. And what is this? This is a commander drop, but not going directly for Mephi's base. He's just coming out to the front line and he is going to start doing some damage. He's going to start to try and overcharge those loyalists. And we can see the first overcharge going out there, and down he goes. So he's going to use his commander to oppose that because he doesn't have T3 on the field. But, well, I was going to say Mephi's got the advantage with these loyalists, but he's actually got them sitting around not doing a heck of a lot right now. He needs to get those guys into action and start doing something a little bit more useful with them. And that doesn't mean running them up into the commander because they will get overcharged. And there's a couple more here. These guys could definitely get up and cause all sorts of problems in the eco. A loyalist into each of these little bays here would be able to take away any eco that Ajax has, and Mephi's actually still running away with eco. He's sitting on 83 mass per tick to 63 for Ajax. So the eco game is definitely shifting in Mephi's favour. He's got the T3 on the field, but this commander's looking a little bit dangerous. If he can overcharge those loyalists, then that can get rid of the threat that Mephi's got. But Mephi is starting to build up a little bit of a critical mass of loyalists at this point, and there's actually a transport coming in with a bunch of reinforcements for Ajax. So it looks like Ajax might be going to try and make his last stand here and use his ACU to front and take out as many of those loyalists as he can. We could be in for a little bit of a showdown any moment now. And how is the ACU placed here for Mephi? He's actually sitting back here on upgrade while those loyalists spew out of the factory, and he is starting to make a move on Mephi's main base. The loyalists in the back that are just destroying that T2 army. So it looks like Ajax might actually find himself a little bit isolated any second now. If that T2 army does get destroyed, he might be able to push all the way in. It won't take too many Ilshivas to survive and get through and start hitting that ACU. There's only 10,000 hit points on that ACU because that is an unupgraded Cybran ACU, 10k hit points, and Mephi's actually deciding to get the heck out of there. He did have his T2 upgrade underway, but he has cancelled that to try and back up and save his ACU. He did manage to get a Cerberus turret up. Those guys are not terribly effective, and well, it looks like those loyalists are just lagging a little bit too much for Mephi. It looks like if he can't get those guys into play a little bit faster, then it is going to actually go towards Mephi, but he is now taking a lot of fire on his main base because those loyalists were so far back. The loyalists now zooming in. Those guys are really, really quick. There is another Cerberus turret up, so that's doing a little bit more damage, and we might find that that T2 army just peters out for Ajax, and he gets caught in amongst too many loyalists. Ajax, he was doing really good on his region. He was up to just about full health, but he is now starting to absolutely vaporize. Look at the hit points gapping it off the ACU. He takes a whole lot of hits. He gets a rank of veterancy down to 2,500, 1,100. I can't even count that fast. And down goes the ACU. So Ajax not quite able to push hard enough. He just didn't have everything that he needed. His T2 army ran out and was not able to fight against what Mephi had online. So very, very unfortunate there for Ajax, and that does mean that the Break-A-Wish Foundation is going to grab the points for that guy. Very, very intense. Could have gone either way. Definitely very interesting. Alright, let's hop out of there and there we go. Alright, so very interesting play there from Ajax and Mephi. I did think that Ajax had the early advantage. I was sure that he was going to be able to pull something off. That almost beetle snipe from Mephi was almost brilliant. I was going to say brilliant, but not quite paying off for him. So unfortunately, that didn't work, and he did end up wasting those beetles. But in the end, it doesn't matter because Mephi was able to stop that push of Ajax. The ACU in there, just not quite enough, and he went down. Alright, let's have a look at what game we have got next. We've got a Chosen versus Jagged Appliance game in the 1v1. So, I think we might have a quick look and see if we can grab that, and let's see if I can find it. Alright, so I have found a game here from Chosen. Let's just pull it up and just check if it is the 1 versus 1 and see if that's what we're looking for, because we've got a few 1v1 games. So the format, of course, for Intergalactic Colosseum is 1 versus 1, so each team is from a single clan. They put forwards 6 players for a week, and basically the format goes into 2 1 versus 1s at the same time as 2 versus 2s, and that uses up all 6 players from the clan. Then you shift up to 3 versus 3 and 4 versus 4 games. Alright, so we have got the game here. It is ready to go. Let's jump across to the action and see how these guys are going to score. Alright, here we go. So we have got for the Special Noob Forces, Chosen or Chosen Noob. He is in yellow, he is in the south, and he has opted for Aeon, so that's going to give him the hover capabilities of the Aurora. And I'm just going to fix the minimap real quick. There we go. No, yes. Alright, so Aeon in the south for Chosen for the Special Noob Forces, and his opponent for the Empire clan. So this is the inaugural Empire game. We have got Jagged Appliance, currently rated 1800, and he has opted for Cybran. He is throwing down his first land factory. He's going to get 3 PGNs, and his core mix is underway, and he will be seeing a little bit of land spam from him. And down here, the Aeon for Chosen, he has got his first land factory underway. He is going to grab power, grab those core mixes just the same, and start to spam. So he's got his first engineer out of the gate. He's heading out here to grab those 2 mixes using the range build, so cleverly putting his engineer right in the middle so the range ring reaches both of those mixes. He can build both of those without moving, and then he'll head off and grab another mix and some manual reclaim while that air factory gets constructed by the ACU. We've got a scout out for Jagged Appliance. He is heading down towards the center. That's going to be just looking out for any maybe bombers, maybe raiding units that are going to be coming his way. The expansion for Jagged Appliance, he's grabbing a bunch of manual reclaim. He's also using the range ring to full advantage with that engineer, grabbing a couple more mixes before heading out and grabbing a little bit more reclaim and some more economy. So far we've got 6 mass per tick for Chosen and 9 for Jagged Appliance. Well, actually, I think there was a little bit of a power stall because they are both sitting on, well, 8 and 9 at the moment. So probably a slight issue with running out of power in his early build there for Chosen. So, Chosen grabbing those PGens. Of course, you do need about 6 PGens if you don't have a lot of tree reclaim to get your first air factory underway. So he will be going second air, and he's going to get some air units out of there. In contrast, Jagged Appliance going land, and then a 3rd air factory. So it gives him a little bit more opportunity to get those power generators up and running, and a little bit more spam online early on. But it means he may be susceptible to an early bomber if Chosen decides to go that way. Now his air factory is just starting to go down now. That will be completed in a few seconds, and we'll see what he's going to start to build. And actually Chosen doing very nicely on the scoreboard. Well, that was temporary, of course, because that was reclaim, and he is actually grabbing the Hydra, so that's going to be a nice power boost for him. And the Hydra also going up in just a moment, so it looks like Jagged Appliance maybe just a little bit behind in grabbing that expansion. And, well, actually he has got 1 mix ahead in the mass game. So very, very even in terms of expansion. Well, while I say that, there's actually these 2 mixes out on the left-hand side that Chosen hasn't even reached yet, while Jagged Appliance has got those guys definitely underway. He's got 1 up, and the engineer grabbing the 2nd. There's definitely a little bit more of an advantage here. We've got a few Mantis out for Jagged Appliance. An early raid there could be a huge setback here for Chosen, because he does have these 2 engineers out front. They are completely undefended, and I don't think that Chosen has any idea. He's got 1 land scout over here, which has got a little bit of radar, but so far not a lot else. Okay, there we go. He's got his bomber out of that factory, but it does mean that he so far hasn't had any scouting over this area, and he is going to have a nasty surprise in just a second when that engineer comes into contact with a couple of Mantis, and there's a radar with those guys, so they will be aware that there is an engineer right for the picking, and they're going to move in, or maybe just let the engineer come to them and cause a few issues. We do have a fairly similar situation in the right-hand side, though, because the engineer out there for Jagged Appliance is completely undefended, and there are a couple of Auroras heading that way to try and cause a little bit of damage. It does mean that Jagged Appliance is a couple of mass ahead in the eco game because he's got those two mixes completed, and he's actually going to try and move the engineer out of the way, try and throw up a T1 PD. So if he can get that completed, that will be very, very nice for Jagged Appliance, because Auroras have a ridiculously hard time shooting over the walls of Tech 1 PD. So they will go down to the PD if that happens, but it looks like he might be onto the plan, and he is bringing the Auroras down. They're going to start doing some damage to that engineer and take him out before these Mantis can intercept. So that will be a net win for Chosen taking out that engineer, but he still has lost his entire expansion down in the left there, which is going to give him a little bit less of an eco, and well, the 2 mass extractors is going to be 4 mass per tick, which is what it takes to run a land factory on spam. So if you do lose those, that is 1 less factory that you can run. So Chosen going to be a little bit of a disadvantage there. He has managed to throw down a PD at the front line here to defend that mix and the Hydro, but he still hasn't managed to deal with the problem in this left hand corner, and there's another Mantis running amok around these mixes over here. There's a couple of Auroras coming in to assist, although they're fairly badly damaged, and they're actually going to go down because they do walk into the firing range of the Mantis. Those guys did need to stay back a little bit and use radar coverage, but radar was a little bit of a problem because the scout was actually lost already. So it looks like there's going to have to be a few more reinforcements come in to take that out. The mix is going to go down in the meantime and put a little bit more pressure on. He's already 2 mass per tick behind, and well, the scoreboard just fluctuating a little bit. They're both sitting on 21. It looks like they are managing to do a little bit of damage to each other, but all in all, Jagged Appliance just managing to do a little bit more damage to the expansion eco than Chosen has, although Bomber's still causing a bit of a problem. There are a bunch of interceptors out there for Jagged Appliance, so they will take care of that guy, and he goes down without doing too much damage. Alright, the ACU's both moving to the centre now, so Chosen sitting in the water at the moment. He's actually going to head across to the other side and start to do a little bit of damage, perhaps. I'm not sure whether he's going to throw some land factories up. He's actually continuing to stream bombers in, which is a little bit of a mistake because there's more than enough interceptors online. He's only getting a single pass with each bomber, although that one does get away, and it takes out 3 engineers, so pretty good effort, even though that bomber will be disappearing momentarily. And it looks like Jagged Appliance is just a little bit caught out with his ACU. He has got a lot of Auroras from Chosen now bearing down on him, and he's going to be taking quite a lot of fire. Of course, Auroras do outrange an unupgraded ACU, so those guys are going to be able to sit back and kite the ACU pretty effectively, and Jagged Appliance is going to take a whole lot of extra fire. He's actually down into the yellow already, and we'll have to see whether Chosen is willing to pursue in the hopes of getting an ACU kill early on, or whether he is actually going to back up and get these Mantis to save him. And I think that might be the case because the Mantis are not going to, well, the Auroras are not going to want to walk into the range of the Mantis too much. And Bombers out there for a Jagged Appliance doing a fantastic amount of work, because Bombers have enough damage to kill an Aurora in a single pass, because an Aurora being a floaty tank, I was going to say floaty artillery, but that's the Zooey. The floaty tanks have got less HP than their land-based counterparts, and they will actually die to a single pass of a bomber. Chosen and Jagged both down into the yellow here, and we've actually got Wagner's on the field, or Wagner's if you want the correct pronunciation, and those guys are starting to pop out because Jagged Appliance has made the shift to T2. And let's just go down and see what Chosen has got. He's got his T2 factory up, and he's starting to throw some T2 army up and try and do a little bit of damage with those. Meanwhile though, these bombers just causing absolute chaos amongst the Auroras there for Chosen. Those guys are just vaporizing every single pass of a bomber, and of course Jagged does have pretty good air control right now. Chosen's still focusing on building bombers and not really getting any interceptors at all into the game, and there's more than enough there for Jagged Appliance to do enough damage. And there is a T1 PD up in the top right, so that's going to secure the area against Auroras reasonably well. But we can see there is an Obsidian in the mix now, the bomber deciding to hit that, which is a little bit of a waste because that does go straight onto the shield of the Obsidian and doesn't do any damage to the actual unit, and the shield will regen reasonably quickly. So those Tech 1 units now coming into range and, well, getting hit by bombers. They're starting to do a little bit of damage. If they can take out this mass extractor, then their job is done, and this Tech 1 point defense is completely useless because it hasn't defended any of those mass extractors. In terms of the map control, it's looking still an advantage for Jagged Appliance. He does have engineers down here. He's managed to grab this expansion. He will be able to reclaim this reasonably soon. All of the reclaim is also sitting on Jagged's side of the map, so there's a lot there that he can pick up. He does have engineers out the front grabbing that, and that is definitely going to be in his favor. One problem for him, though, is this Obsidian in the back here, which is actually choosing to sit still and take T1 bomber fire, so it's not going to last too long at all with numerous T1 bombers bearing down on it. It's starting to move in. That guy is going to be able to do a little bit of damage, but I'm not sure that he's got enough left because he's down into the red already, and he's going to start taking fire from that T1 PD, and he is going to go down. So not being terribly effective there from Chosen, and still a little bit of a problem for him. And actually, cheekily, Jagged Appliance is grabbing this expansion down here, which is going to give a significant eco bonus to him. Currently sitting on 29 mass per tick to the 19 mass per tick of Chosen. So Chosen just starting to struggle a little bit in the eco game. He doesn't have enough air, and actually it looks like the T1 bombers from Jagged Appliance are starting to move down and focus on the base of Chosen. He does have a few interceptors online. He probably does have enough to defend that at home, although the big cloud of interceptors coming in for Jagged Appliance is going to start doing damage to those guys, and the bombers mostly going down. So if the interceptors had gone in first for Jagged, perhaps he could have taken out the interceptor force of Chosen and done some damage with those bombers, but unfortunately it was not to be, and that has not happened. Another bomber going down there. It's coming too close to an Ascendant there, so the mobile flak for Aeon, just doing way too much damage for that T1 bomber, but he does get a bomb away and take out a number of Auroras. It looks like Chosen finally dispatching a couple of engineers to try and reclaim this area. Unfortunately, he's probably not aware that there is a Tech 1 point defense going down, and those mixes have already been taken for Jagged Appliance. So definitely a big problem there. 31 to 10 on the scoreboard at the moment. Now, I'm not quite sure if that's a power stall or if Chosen has just had that many mass extractors taken out, and it is a power stall. So he is quite hard in the stall right now. Is he on upgrade? He certainly is. He is grabbing an upgrade there, and that is going to be responsible for that. So his mass situation is going to improve a little bit when that upgrade finishes, but there is a pretty dangerous T2 army looking at him across the ditch here, and that is going to be a little bit problematic for Chosen to deal with. It's probably going to be a gun upgrade that is probably a little bit more sensible at this point. If Chosen can have enough power to run overcharge and get the double gun upgrade, well, at least the range upgrade for Aeon, he is going to be able to overcharge at pretty significant distances, and that is going to be problematic for this T2 army because overcharge negates a few T2 units pretty well. Of course, the problem for Chosen is that he's only got one ACU. He can't be everywhere at once, and he will lose map control with that ACU only being able to be in that one place. So Chosen, he's sitting on 6800, so not the most fantastic level of health ever, but he is getting to work on that T1 and T2 army for Jagged, and that is going to actually push those guys back. Jagged will be aware that he can get overcharged, and he will lose that army pretty quickly if Chosen can maintain overcharge. Let's just have a look at what he's got. He does have energy storage, but he's lacking a little bit in power generation right now. He's only on plus 263. So that is going to take quite some time to recharge his overcharge cannon. So he will be able to fire that thing at, once every 3 seconds, but it's going to take a little bit longer than that to actually recharge right now. So yeah, not going to work terribly well without a little bit more power. And has he got more power going up? It doesn't look like he has got a lot. He is actually opting for a TAC missile launcher back here at home. So we could see a little bit of TAC missile play. And of course, it wouldn't be Canis River without TAC missiles. And it looks like so far, Jagged Appliance isn't actually ready for that. And he doesn't have any TMD online. It won't take him too long to get some up, and there's actually not a great array of targets right now. The HQ would be a fantastic target. There is one T2 mass extractor in the back here, which would also be a good TAC missile target, but for the most part, there is not a lot that Chosen will be able to take out with that TAC launcher. Still sitting in the front, doing damage with his ACU. He's just sitting back using the extra range. Jagged is going for an upgrade that is probably going to be a gun upgrade, would be my guess, or Well, it could be T2 if he wants to throw down some Cerberus turrets. Let's see what he did. He did actually go for gun, so he is going to now bring that ACU into play and try and do a little bit of damage. The problem for him is that he is going to be outranged by Chosen's ACU, although he has just wandered into range, and he's going to be able to start laying some damage down, sitting on 10,000 HP for Jagged Appliance, and only 6,300 for Chosen, and there's a lot of T2 in the mix as well for Jagged Appliance, so Chosen has to be a little bit careful not to get caught by these rhinos. Actually, it's Wagner's, of course, because they need to be able to scoot across the water. And it looks like Jagged is going to come back because the Obsidians in the back here are starting to lay down a little bit of hurt on his base and his ACU, so he is going to overcharge those guys, get rid of them, and that is the end of that. But it did force him back, it brought him down into the yellow, so a little bit of a waste of units. And probably the biggest issue for Chosen is the amount of reclaim that he's actually left here right on Jagged's doorstep, and so far he doesn't have any way of actually reclaiming that because he is under fire from the ACU of Jagged Appliance. He is going to evacuate the area because he is looking a little bit peaky there and not the healthiest ever. Looks like Jagged is going to back up now because there's a couple more units coming in to support. And Jagged just doesn't want to push the issue. He's got quite a significant HP advantage, but not the most HP ever because he is a Cyber ACU, and that is going to be problematic in terms of the total max HP that he can get. Alright, we've got a little bit of engagement on the left here. It looks like a bunch of Wagners being redispatched to come and clear out the forces and the eco that Chosen has managed to claim. And interestingly enough, the scoreboard has actually turned for the mass, and it is 31 mass per tick to Chosen to 21 for Jagged Appliance. So a little bit of a problem that will be corrected any moment now because these Wagners are going to chew through all of the expansion on the side and eat into that advantage just a little bit. We can see the first TAC missile heading down that way, and it is going for the HQ. Actually, that must have been the second factory the second TML coming in, and here comes the third, and down goes the T2 HQ. So unfortunately for Jagged Appliance, he's now behind an eco. He's had his HQ destroyed, and he is going to have to rebuild that before he's able to produce any more T2 units, while Chosen is free to carry on producing the obsidians that he has been using, although he just doesn't have enough on the ground to combat the army that's coming through here for Jagged. He's got mostly T1, there's just a little bit of T2 in the mix, and there just isn't enough there for him to really push back. It looks like Jagged's actually going to think twice about sending his Wagners in first. He's bringing those back, he's going to front with his ACU and soak up as much of the damage as he can. Meanwhile, that TAC missile launcher absolutely going to town. It's on 4 kills at the moment. It is going in, taking out all of the build capacity. So, wow, the factories are all going down, and that is going to leave Jagged Appliance with very few options. Because, of course, the first reaction that Jagged would have had is to grab one of these T1 factories and start upgrading it to a T2 HQ so that he can get his T2 back online. And by destroying those T1 factories, it looks like Chosen has actually managed to completely shut down that land production for Jagged Appliance, but also any eco that Jagged sunk into upgrading one of those into T2 also disappeared when the TAC missile hit. So unfortunately for Jagged, he's going to shortly find himself very short on ability to produce units. Meanwhile, Chosen able to continue spitting these guys out. He's got a little army here, but for the most part focusing on those TAC missiles and not really getting too much else done. And those TAC missiles coming in, and look at all the assistance on that factory. So he has gone straight for the T2 air factory. He is starting to throw out gunships. He's going to be trying to snipe out the ACU because he's not going to be able to do it by land at the moment. And he is now taking fire from, well, I was going to say TAC missiles. I was expecting a lot of damage coming in. There we go. And takes it down into the red, 1900. So that was interesting that it jumped straight down. Maybe a little bit of a glitch there, but he's definitely taken one hit already. The second hit goes in. He is now repairing that. He needs to get over 6k HP before the next missile hits. And where is the next missile coming in? I don't see one. It's just in the air now, and I'm not sure that it's going to get there in time. 48, 4900. 5200, it is going to get over the 6k mark just before that missile hits. It depends entirely on how fast another missile can come in, and there it goes. And oh, it was not quite. I was a little bit wrong with that prediction, and that T2 HQ does go down. So that TAC launcher for Chosen being absolutely, well, demolishing the infrastructure back at base for Jagged Appliance. He just can't get anything done. He's got a single T1 land factory up right now. He's got nothing else at the back of his base. He's got a bunch of T1 factories up the front. Are any of those guys on T2 upgrade? I'm not sure that he is able to shift to T2 at the moment. And this is what a few people may consider a little bit of an exploit, actually, because once you hit the TAC missile stage, if you don't have TAC missile defense already in play, if your T2 HQ gets sniped, you can't produce a T2 engineer to get that TAC missile defense up, and that is a bit of a problem. There's a couple of Wagners making their way into the back of Chosen's base. Chosen doesn't have a lot online to be able to deal with those guys because he has been focusing on the TAC missiles, and it looks like the ACU is going to be in range, and he will be able to come and just take that out. They are trying very, very hard to take out that TAC launcher. Unfortunately, they do not succeed, and another TAC missile is away. So absolute carnage in the back of Jagged Appliance's base. There is just nothing that he can do to get that T2 online and get everything to be able to combat those TAC missiles that are coming in. He was not able to get enough gunships online for a snipe. He's only got the 2 there, and there is plenty of flak online. This is looking a little bit dangerous for Jagged Appliance. He is struggling very, very much to be able to compete in the building game, but he is managing to do quite well in eco. He's sitting on 31 mass per tick, and he's managed to take out quite a lot of the eco that Chosen did control, and that is now contributing to Jagged. So pulling it back, he's now sitting at a 2-to-1 mass advantage, but it just depends on whether he can use it, because of course he is sitting on a pile of reclaim as well. So I don't think mass is a problem right now for Jagged. His biggest issue is getting all of his build capacity online, keeping it online, and getting the T2 army re-established. He does have a T2 HQ built. There was quite a bit of assistance there. He threw all of that mass that he's reclaiming into grabbing that. He does have a T2 engineer or 2 out, and I would get to work straight away on those TAC missile defense if I were him. And well, we actually saw that he had T2 factories up for quite some time before, and it's probably a little bit of a mistake there that he didn't get a T2 NG out straight away and get some TAC missile defense up earlier on, and that has cost him quite dearly. But he does have still a fairly decent army online. It is mostly T1, and well, Chosen's still sitting on mainly T1 as well. If you look at these army compositions, they are mostly T1. There's a few Obsidians thrown in the mix, but for the most part, Chosen hasn't had the eco after investing in those TAC missiles to be able to do much more in the way of T2. Chosen does have to be careful that he doesn't stay in range of that gun ACU though, because he's still sitting in the yellow 9,000 HP compared to the 12k that Jagged Appliance now has. This could still go either way. The eco has been, well, it's still sitting in pretty significant favour of Jagged Appliance. He's still got some T2 mixes back here. He's managed to get his TAC missile defences up, and he is starting to re-establish. He's managed to re-establish building at the front, so he's got a lot of T1 army, so he's got quite a bit to accompany his ACU, but Chosen doesn't have quite so much. He still has his base intact. He's got his T2 tech, and he doesn't really have as much in the way of ground forces. Overcharges going out there from the ACUs. Chosen definitely looking like he is not in a position here to fight Jagged particularly hard. He's moving back towards his base. I don't think he has much in the way of T2 PD. There is one Oblivion turret back online there. Unfortunately, it is shooting the hill and not doing a lot of damage. The Aurora's coming in. They are going to be able to outrange the Mantis because this is still mostly T1 and there are no hoplites in the mix, so the Auroras are going to be able to do quite well, unless of course you charge them straight into the Mantis and you let them all die, which is exactly what he was doing, and unfortunately that means that Chosen is going to unnecessarily lose a lot of his army there, and that's no good at all. It does leave quite a bit of reclaim now on Chosen's side, and it looks like there's some gunships coming in trying to finish off, but I don't think he was spotted that there is still a flak in the area, and that is going to finish off that gunship. So a little bit of an attempted move to get some more HP off Chosen's ACU, but not quite anything coming of it. It does mean, though, that Chosen is very, very vulnerable, and the T1 army for Jagged Appliance, and interestingly, I'm not sure we see in many games armies reverting too much from T2 to T1, which is pretty much what has happened here. Jagged being forced to go back to T1 because his T2 HQ is destroyed, Chosen being forced to stay on T1 because he didn't have enough eco after investing in attack missiles, and they've actually switched back mainly to T1 forces, and we can see Chosen trying to grab a little bit of reclaim. He's sitting at more than a a 2-to-1 mass disadvantage now to Jagged Appliance. That is not looking very good for him, and bombers are actually coming in from Jagged Appliance because he still owns the skies reasonably well. He's got a good amount of interceptors up here. He can do quite a lot of damage, and he doesn't have a lot to oppose him. There are no interceptors for Chosen, who is relying completely on mobile flak. So, Chosen managing to actually push that army back. So, Jagged Appliance just not wanting to commit right now, and perhaps feed the ACU a little bit more of Chosen. So, we'll have to see what is going to happen here, because Chosen looking very, very damaged, 5200 HP. He does have that range upgrade, so he is able to sit back at range and do a little bit of damage to Jagged Appliance's ACU, but if he comes under fire himself, he's going to quickly find he doesn't have enough in the tank and he's going to die. So there's another push coming in here from Jagged Appliance. He probably feels that he's got enough T1 online now to do another push with that ACU. He does need to get rid of this Oblivion turret, because that will do a decent amount of damage to the army, but it's not going to even come into play because those overcharges coming in. Chosen just sitting too much in range there. He's on 600 HP. Oh, it looks like he is going to be able to get behind the hill, which is currently causing his Oblivion turret a lot of problems, and he is going to be able to survive for just a moment longer. The ACU coming around for Jagged Appliance, he's only on 8100 HP, so he doesn't have a huge amount, but sitting on 600 HP, 2 T1 bombers is going to be enough to take Chosen out, but it looks like he is, well, he's fighting to the end. He's staying out of range of the ACU. He's doing as much damage to the T1 army as he can. He's sitting on 700 HP. There is barely anything left on that ACU. The Oblivion turret has been destroyed. There is virtually nothing left. He's going to be sitting back and just doing as much damage as he can. He's taking fire, and there he goes. So down goes Chosen, and that was very, very interesting. I did think he was going to be able to capitalize a little bit more with those tack launches, but unfortunately did not happen. Alright, so let's jump back here. Alright, here we go. So a very, very interesting game there between Jagged Appliance and Chosen. Now, I did think that that tack missile was actually going to win the game for Chosen, but unfortunately it looks like he invested just a little bit too much in that guy, and it did not really pay off in the long run. Alright, let's just have a look at what else we've got. We've got Pophinus and Manreed also did a 1v1. I do want to cover a little bit more, because in the previous weeks we have skipped a few games and not managed to get a huge amount covered. So I will jump into the Manreed game before we shift on to the 2v2s, and let's go and find, well, let's go and find our replay for that. Alright. So, I was, yes, very surprised there. I did think that Jagged Appliance got a lot more online earlier. He had a bit of an eco advantage, but that tack missile was absolutely devastating from Chosen, and, well, very, very effective, but unfortunately it drained too much of his eco, and he just didn't have enough left to be able to fight the T1 that Jagged Appliance was able to muster afterwards. So that is the end of that one. Alright, just checking messages just to... Alright, actually that is a Canis River. Let's jump into an Arctic Refuge game as soon as the FAF client starts responding again, because right now it is doing its favourite pastime of just freezing a little bit. And that could have been a nice snipe as well, actually, from Jagged Appliance. He was trying to get those gunships underway. At that point, there was not a lot of flak online for Chosen, so the gunships could have succeeded, but he only managed to get a couple of those guys out before the HQ was destroyed. So unfortunately that did not amount to anything either, and it came down to just T1 spam. So fairly late in the game, it was, as I said, very interesting, because both armies reverted pretty much entirely to T1 at the end there, and the ACUs fought it out. Alright, so we've got a game here loading up, and this is going to be Manreed versus Apophis, also known as Siowona Defnewen, or something like that. Again, if anybody knows how to pronounce that particular name, please feel free to pop that into chat. We're going to jump into the action for those guys and see how they're going to get on Arctic Refuge. Alright, here we go. So, for the JEW, or Joint Economy Warfare Clan, we have got Manreed. He is currently rated 1500, and he has opted for Cyber, and he's going to throw down his first land factory, grab those core mixers, and get his expansion underway. Against him, we have got, for the UEF clan, Seowona, let's just call him Apophis, and he is also going Cybran, so we've got a Cybran matchup, and he is also going first land. He's going to get that first power gen, and then he'll be getting his engineers out and underway. Of course, this map does have some civilians in the center, which you need to watch out for these T1 point defense early on, and you've got a lot of expansion that you need to do, and there's a lot of opportunity for raiding parties to run around. You've got a lot of routes around and over these little mountains, and those guys can get in there, they can raid, they can cause all sorts of problems in the expansion. So let's see how these guys are going to deal with that. We've got the first engineers out. We've got heading out towards the front for Apophis. He's going to grab the mixers. He's going to grab the 3 other core mixers for him. And his second engineer is going to help out with the ACU's building by the looks of it, grabbing that mix and throwing down some power. Actually, he's going to change his mind and go after some manual reclaim. Up in the north, we have got Manrid's engineers coming out. They are deciding to go for some reclaim first, so we can see an attack move coming directly out of the factory, which gives you that fantastic range on the engineers for reclaim, and those guys are going to start scooping up some trees before being dispatched on their actual missions, which are mix building and reclaim and expansion. We can see quite a nice big manual set of orders there from Manrid, so a little bit more micro going on in the north for the JEW clan. Alright, we can see the second land factory is starting to get underway. Manrid getting enough power online, and his initial mixes, he's going to start his land game, and he's going to get a few raiding units out and about and try and cause a little bit of a problem for Apophis. Apophis using his first land factory to get a Mantis out. That Mantis is going to head straight up to an expected location for an engineer, which is exactly where that engineer will end up, but it is some ways away yet, so we'll see how that works out for him. And of course, he is accompanying that with a radar so that he can see what's going on. He does have to be careful not to stray too close to the PD in the civilian structures there. Alright, he has got this engineer reasonably far out. And of course, you need to get the engineers out across the map really quickly on this one, because the mixes are reasonably sparse, and you do have these extra expansions which you do need to take. And we'll see if the ACUs are going to head that way soon, or if they're going to sit back at base and just build engineers to do the work for them. Got a nice little party coming out here for Manrid. There's a couple of Mantis, an engineer doing the build at the front there, so obviously a little bit of a spam factory planned for Manrid, and he's got a couple of Mantis on guard duty to make sure that doesn't die, and he's actually done exactly the same in the north here, so this is a very, very nice little play, because he's going to have 2 Mantis online to defend against the one that is coming out for Apophis. So it could be just a little bit of a reclaim gift there by Apophis to the north, and he's got his own engineers coming out, and he's got a little bit of a defense party for him as well, but those guys will be heading out, and no, they're actually doing a little bit more of a raid, and it looks like Manrid is actually doing a fantastic job of defending his expanding engineers. He's got at least 2 Mantis on every single one, so those guys are going to be pretty secure in the short term, and that means that Manrid is going to have a little bit more online in total on the field, and he's going to be able to start raiding. So he's actually bringing those Mantis that were on guard duty out to do a little bit of raiding now that he has realized that that is not going to eventuate. And there is a Mantis here for Apophis. He's going to try and get in. This would be an excellent kill if he is able to pick up that engineer. Now, there is a Mantis following him up. He does have a little bit more HP, though, so it looks like the micro is a little bit stronger with Apophis. He kills it with 62 HP left, and there's only Medusas in the mix. And that engineer, oh, this could be... Okay, 9 HP. Okay, very, very lucky play there for Manrid. He managed to bring that second Mantis in just in time to pick up that Mantis and save the engineer with 9 HP, which means he can continue building that forward base. He does have his ACU coming in, so he would have been able to complete it with that in any case. We've got the 2 Mantis on guard duty, bypassing the one that is on raiding, and those guys are going to come through here and manage to pick up the mixes. That will mean that Manrid needs to double back or dispatch another engineer to grab that mix again, unless, of course, they want to straight past it, which is not going to happen. They're going to double back and take out that mix. We've got a nice little raiding party here. As long as they stay away from the ACU, they will be fine. And those guys are, well, they've got radar coverage. Let's see just how far that radar coverage extends. Not quite far enough to see anything at the moment. So these guys are running just about blind at the moment because the map is a little bit larger. They've got no coverage of it. There is a nice air scout out there for Manred, so he does have his air factory online. And of course there is an air factory online as well for Apophis. He has got a few interceptors out, obviously anticipating any potential bombers and making sure they don't do any damage. This raiding party will come under fire here from Manred, and it's probably going to do reasonably well initially, but of course Manred can dispatch reinforcements a lot more easily than Apophis can, and that is going to push those guys back. In terms of the scoreboard, we're both sitting on 21 mass per tick, 180 power for Manred and 200 to Apophis. So very, very little in it. It looks like Manred is actually stalling at the moment, and that could be, is that an upgrade perhaps because he is not doing too badly in the economy game. He is sitting at minus 100 power, so that does feel like he is probably throwing something down on his ACU. No, the ACU is not doing it. That will probably be a mix or something, I guess. I don't know where he's spending his power, or maybe he just didn't allocate enough for his air factory. In any case, he has got a pretty nice force online in the center here. He definitely has enough and his ACU to be able to try and grab the reclaim. There are a couple of T2 PGNs which are ripe for capture or reclaim, and the ACU is both getting to work on those. So obviously the established meta is that you bring your ACU into the center and you grab everything that you can, and it looks like Manred is content on blowing up those little nothings, while Apophis does get to work on the PGNs. But it looks like for some reason Apophis is backing up and going to leave the area to Manred. So Manred very, very soon will be able to pick up all of the mass from those T2 gens, and he's coming in. They are both destroyed, and he is about to pick up the mass, and he's just scooping that up. That is going to be a significant advantage to Manred. That is going to do him very, very well in the economy game. It does look like he may be slightly behind in the expansion because Apophis does have a forward base over this side. He will be able to take this expansion, and he's got engineers up into the mix at the top there, which is, well, there's a little bit less built here for Manred, but he does have a little bit of a presence as well. It does mean that Apophis is slightly ahead. He's got 2 max extractors ahead of 23 mass per tick. Well, it was 19. It's just dropped down to 16, 17. So it looks like just a little bit of damage being done there, and we can see there's a mass extractor gone. So, oh, actually it's this little raid at the back. Very, very nice. Just a couple of Mantis managing to take out a decent chunk of eco, and Manred is going to have to respond to those guys, and he's going to bring overwhelming force in and take those guys out, but not before another mass extractor goes down. That is a little bit of a win there for Apophis because that only cost him a couple of Mantis, and that has done 4 mass extractors worth of damage around the back, which is 8 mass per tick. So it does mean that Manred is going to have to recover from that. But unfortunately for him, Manred did grab all of the reclaim in the center and has got the 4 mexes to boot. So that's going to make him a little bit more dangerous, especially if he sets up shop in the center here. That's going to be that much harder for Apophis to push forward and cause damage. Apophis looking very nice on the raids at the moment, though. He is bringing a lot more units around the side. I don't know, well, actually Manred is bringing the rest of these guys in that he fought those 2 raiders with, and he's going to support. It does mean that he's going to focus a little bit of his units away, and I suspect with these 3 factories, I was going to say 4, but there's just 3, with those 3 factories online, Apophis is probably going to be able to secure this area reasonably well. He is bringing those Mantis back. He's going to want to group those guys up before taking the Mantis for Manred head on. And it looks like there's still a little bit of a battle going on here. Manred still just having a little bit more of a presence in the area. He's got engineers. He does have a factory, but so does Apophis. They both have the ability to get engineers out and claim the area. There's just a little bit more in the way of fighting force online there for Apophis. These two guys jockeying for position in the centre here. It looks like Apophis maybe just a little bit more in terms of firepower. He does have a T1 PD, which is going to help stopping Manred pushing up. I'm not sure if it's quite enough. There are a few Medusas mixed in as well, and there's a few Medusas at the back there for Manred, so they will be able to take out the PD. They'll be able to take each other out range, but I'm pretty sure both these guys sitting on no upgrades on their ACUs at this point, and Manred only just now managing to regain the eco that Apophis managed to take out. So with the raiding, and down goes another mech. So Apophis continuing to just raid, and just continually doing damage. Manred is sitting on 37 mass per tick, though, to the 27 of Apophis, and that will be because he managed to scoop up the centre. He grabbed the power gens reclaim, and he had those 4 mexes, although those are starting to go down because his army is slightly out of position. They are currently defending his ACU because the ACU is on an upgrade. That's probably going to be a gun upgrade most likely, and he is throwing a lot of force at the top left here in hopes of dislodging Apophis from that. If he can kick him out, that will mean that the mass extractors will go Manred's way and give him a little bit more eco. Actually, the scoreboard has shifted a little bit, and Manred is sitting on 19, so the continual raiding there for Apophis just doing its job and stopping Manred from really echoing up. His commander is actually a little bit vulnerable in the centre now. There are a bunch of units coming from Apophis, and I think he may have spotted the ACU and it being pretty undefended, and this is going to be a big problem for Apophis. Is he going to react? He needs to bring this T1 army back right now to have any chance of defending the ACU, and the ACU is taking fire from Medusas. It is starting to lose HP. It is going to get absolutely hammered if he stays on upgrade. He is really committed to keeping that upgrade going, but unfortunately it means he is going to be taking fire from a whole lot of units, and that is the end of the game. There is just nothing. He did not have his T1 army to support. That is the end of it, and Manred goes down. I didn't expect that. Manred seemed to have a little bit more online on the ground. He was able to outmaneuver. Apophis did a fantastic job of raiding, but Manred just had a little bit more, and he should have been able to win that, but unfortunately he left his ACU undefended. The T1 army disappeared off to the side of the map, and it didn't take much at all for Apophis to take the win. So that is very interesting. Alright, let's drop out of that. Alright, so another fantastic 1-versus-1 game. So Manred going down to Apophis in a reasonably short game. That was 11 minutes 42. So that went down on Arctic Refuge. Alright, so that will finish up the 1-versus-1s that we want to cover. I'm just having a look here to see what we want to do in terms of 2-versus-2s. Let's see. We do have Taketo and Speed, actually, because of course we haven't seen a lot of the Empire clans so far in this tournament because they have had buys the first couple of weeks where you had a couple of dropouts from clans and we didn't get the games underway. So that does mean that the Empire clan is just seeing their first games this week, and we'll go and actually have a look at some of those guys. Alright, so let's stop complaining about not continuing the Ajax versus Murphy. We can't cover all of the games. Hopefully during the week though we'll get some more games casted. I'm not sure if any of the other casters are picking up any of the games out of this tournament, but there's definitely some good stuff here. And if you have just joined us and you don't know what the game is, it is Supreme Commander Forged Alliance, and we are playing the Forged Alliance Forever multiplayer client. So if you want to play, all you need is a copy of Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. You can buy it on Steam. It's only a couple of bucks in a sale, and well, then you just go ahead to www.faforever.com, you download the multiplayer client, and you join us in game. You join clans, you join games, you have a lot of fun, and you join what I would say is the best RTS ever made. So go ahead and do that today if you haven't already. Alright, so back to the games. We are going to go and have a look for Speed's game there. So the FA client just lagging a little bit for me again, so let's go and find out how this game is going to get on in just a moment. Okay, so Let's talk about that last game while this decides to try and load. So, very, very interesting. I did think Manred was going to take the advantage there. He did actually pick up those T2 power gens in the centre. That was a fantastic play. He pushed Apophis out of the centre. He had a good mass advantage, but unfortunately he just moved his army out of position. He lost what he was doing, and that just killed it. So, here we go, we've got Regal Highlands. Yes, excellent. Okay, let's jump into this game. This is going to, well, that is actually broken. That is no good at all. Let's just check if they are still in game. Hopefully we are still in game and we can pick it up. No. Okay, so that game will have to be casted later because unfortunately it's a little bit broken. Alright, the other 2v2, let's have a look at... Happy Noob, no. Oh dear. Okay, so we're just going to have to grab one of the other 2 versus 2s there. I'm just going to pull up our little sheet here and have a look at the 2 versus 2. So on Roanoke, we had Washi and Bloodeer against Fair of Noobs and Nymph Noob. So let's see if we can pick that game up and carry on with our stream. Alright, I will sort that out. I'll be back in just a moment with some action. Alright, thankfully the FAF client has decided to work a little bit, and hopefully I'm not too glitchy. I've actually managed to reconfirm my camera setup a little bit this week, and hopefully it's a little bit smoother and a little bit nicer than it was. In any case, this game is now underway. Let's go across and see how Bloodeer and Envious, so that's Washi, are going to get on. Alright, so we have got the Empire clan against the Special Noob Forces. Alright, in the north, we have got, actually, is it left versus right? No, it is north. Okay, so we have got Fair of Noobs rated at 1200. He has opted for Seraphim. He is going hot pink and he's getting his first land factory underway. He's got a bit of a PGen build around that, and then he'll be getting his air factory constructed. To assist him, we have got Nymph Noob, currently rated at 1300. So these guys giving up a little bit of rating to the E-Clan. This is going to be a reasonably short game if I was into predictions. In any case, Nymph Noob has opted for Cybran. He has thrown down his first land factory. He's getting down a little bit of a power grid, and he is going to get his expansion underway to claim his island. In the south, we have none other than Bloodeer, currently rated at 2200. He could probably take these guys himself, so we'll see how this game is going to play out. He has opted for Cybran in his regal purple that he so often plays. He's got his first land factory down. He is going to be throwing a bunch of PGens down and a second air factory. And to assist him is Envious or Washi for the Empire clan, currently rated at 1800. He has opted for Aeon. He has thrown down his first land factory. He has not got plans yet for his air factory, but he is going to do a bunch of expansion, reclaim, and get his building underway. Let's just fast forward this a little bit because of course Roanoke is a little bit slower and it will take a little bit of time for these guys to get their ecos underway and get their navies up and running. I don't expect this game will be too long, so we can afford to probably just zoom through it a little bit more and just get the coverage and see how Bloodeer and Washi's first game of the IGC is actually going to go. So Fair of Noobs nicely managing to to grab his island. He's still missing a mech there though, which is perhaps a little bit of an oversight, and he is starting to send his expanding engineers out to the islands to grab those guys. There will be a little bit of a rush for these islands, so we can probably see a few transports coming out anytime now, and there'll be some interceptors to probably try and stop those guys from landing, and we'll see who manages to take those and get the eco advantage. In fact, Bloodir is the first out with a transport. He has got that, well, that's very, very quick, 3 minutes 30, and those guys are heading straight over there. There is so far absolutely nothing from Fear of Noobs in his way. There is an interceptor out on guard duty as well. Bloodir being a little bit cautious and dropping the engineers at the side and going for a first land factory just to secure the island, just in case a wayward bomber comes his way and takes everything out. And actually the transport there for Fear of Noobs not far behind, but he doesn't have any interceptor coverage whatsoever, and he goes down to an interceptor. The interceptor's now floating out and trailing behind quite significantly. We've got a drop over here for Envious as well. So Envious is going to claim that island, and it looks like Nymph Noob not yet managing to get any transport out. It looks like he may be foregoing the island in favour of getting a little bit more navy up. And he is going to get his first frigate out and bring that guy across and try to dislodge Envious. I'm not sure how much a single frigate is going to be able to do, especially given there is a sub and a frigate online there for Envious. And, well, that is going to put a pretty swift end to the Navy play for those guys. Overall, in the economy game, we've got Bloodir sitting on 43, 39 for Envious, and then 27, and well, it was 22 for Nymph Noob. I wonder if he might be stalling a little bit. Let's just check that out. He was just a little bit low on power, so that's probably what was happening. 31 and 33-ish for the noobs on this game. So unfortunately, compared to Bloodir and Washi, they do look a little bit like noobs, and we can't expect too much for this game, but we'll just see how they manage to do it. Of course, it has been known to happen where a high-rated player is a little bit overconfident and they maybe make a mistake and let themselves get sniped a little bit, and we'll see if that happens to be the case here. And well, I'm not sure that it will, but we can see how it goes. Alright, so we've got a little bit of a naval engagement coming on here. We've got Bloodir attacking the naval yards for Fear of Noobs, so Fear of Noobs not yet able to get much navy underway. He's trying to get a frigate out there, but that is going to be largely ineffective against the submarines. In fact, is that a submarine? Because he should have switched to subs as soon as he saw those guys, because he doesn't have any torpedo launchers online yet, and he doesn't have anything to combat those two submarines. A couple of frigates come in as well, so that is going to pretty quickly end the naval aspirations for Fear of Noobs and mean that he's going to come under fire pretty quickly. And well, over here it is pretty much the same story. There is very, very little navy online for Nymph Noob. It's just a little bit of an ask for a 13 and a 1200 rated player to take these guys on, so we'll see how long they can hold out. I think is pretty much the name of the game now. A bomber comes in and doesn't manage to do much damage at all. There are a bunch of Zoes coming in to try and cause problems. They mostly go down to frigates because, of course, frigates can micro around Zoe fire, and Zoes are not going to be terribly effective against those guys. Fear of Noobs does manage to get a T1 torpedo launcher up, but it is just going to start taking fire from both the surface and the submarine, and that is the end of that. So in both cases, we've got enemy navy in the harbour for the noobs, and they are going to struggle very, very much to rebuild those navies. And interestingly, Fear of Noob is managing to do not too bad in the eco game. He's managing to get up to 37, slightly ahead of his mate Nymph Noob, but unfortunately significantly behind the 75 mass per tick, or 75 and 76-ish for these guys. A very nice little play actually here from Fear of Noobs. I didn't spot that earlier. Very, very cunning. He is actually coming in and he's going to rip away the heart of Bloodir's eco, because Bloodir just didn't see the Zooey spam factory that was going up here, and that is actually going to do a pretty significant amount of damage. He's down to 50 mass per tick, and the engineers come in to try and reclaim. Unfortunately, Nymph Noob was, it looks like he probably tried to go for a comm drop and was caught out by Washi's Swift Winds. So Washi already sitting at T2 air, and a very nice little move here to grab those Zoes into the back of Bloodir's base. But unfortunately, just a little bit too late. There is already a destroyer online for Bloodir. That Salem is just going to destroy any Zoes that it sees, and that will be the end of that. Looks like FAF Noobs is continuing with his Zooey spam. Unfortunately, he's now got the entirety of the Navy from Washi coming in to harass him. There are swift winds overhead. There are torpedo launchers taking out his naval factories. I thought they were going for the ACU. So, unfortunately, this game is going to go only about 16 minutes, and that will be the end of it. There's a gunship for good measure, a couple of gunships now, and the ACU is going to go down. If he gets in the water, he will go down to torpedoes. If he stands on the land, he will go down to naval fire and gunships, down to 7,300. He is not destined long for this world. So that is going to be the end of that one. Let's just quickly, while that is going on, I'm going to see what other 2v2s. So we had Regal Highlands. Unfortunately, the replay was corrupted for Speed's game, so we will have to go to the JEW clan. So we've got Ish, Soup, and Super versus Philip J. Fry and Joe Wergi. So those are on Regal 6 Highlands. Let's see if we can get a game going for them. Alright, I can see that there. Excellent. Hopefully that is going to work. Let's jump out of this game and hop back into here. Alright, so a little bit of a stomp there for Bloodier's first foray into the Intergalactic Colosseum, proving himself a worthy gladiator, and Washi just giving him a little bit of a helping hand, and those guys managing to mop up the couple of noobs that were mustered against them, and that went fairly quickly. Alright, so we are going to now jump into the JEW versus UEF clans match. This is going to be on Regal 6 Highlands, and we are going to see some 2 versus 2 action for a couple more points towards the clan totals for IGC Season 7. Alright, the game is just getting underway, and let's head over to the loading screen. And it's taking quite some time to load, but there we go. We are now underway, and we can see how the play will pan out. Alright, in the north we have got, for the UEF clan, Ish. He has opted for Seraphim, so we are likely going to see a bunch of Zoes heading over water, followed by a bunch of Ilshavas on land. He is getting a first land factory down. He'll be grabbing a little bit of power, his core mixers, and then going after the Hydro. To back up Ish, we have got Super in hot pink. He has opted for UEF, something we haven't seen a lot of so far today, and he is going to throw down his first land factory, grab his core mixers, and, well, he doesn't actually have a Hydro on hand. He is going to have to build Tech 1 PGens and get himself established that way. So Super just getting his build order sorted there and getting the first engineer out now. Their opponents for the Joint Economy Warfare clan, we've got Joe Wergi. He has, well, actually, if anyone would like to correct the pronunciation for that, I'm sure I'm butchering it. He is going Seraphim. He has thrown down his first land factory. He is getting his Hydro and then going air to get a little bit of air on the field, and supporting him is Philip J. Fry, currently rated at 1900 in global rating, and he is going to go Cybran. He has got his first couple of mixes and BGens down. He is going to go second land, and we're going to see a little bit of spam out of him. So this map is not normally played in a 2 versus 2 format. Often it's 1 versus 1, being this position and this position, and these guys have now got these extra expansions occupied by their teammates, and these guys don't have a Hydro. We can expect mostly land spam from them, and there's also a bit of reclaim for them to pick up early on, which is very nice. And we can probably expect 2 fairly distinct lanes. We've got the top lane here, which is Ish versus Philip J. Fry, and then we'll have a bottom lane here, which will be Jogi versus Super. We've got a couple of Selens out now for Jogi, and he is going to park those up. He's going to turn off their guns and let the cloak do its thing. So he's going to have a little bit of free intel, and those guys are not going to be spotted for quite some time, unless, of course, the ACU rocks up to the front line, or, of course, if they get T3 and go for Omni. Alright, so we've got Philip J. Fry now throwing down some more power. He actually hasn't grabbed that fourth mech in his starting position. He will grab that momentarily after he's got his power grid online. He's got an awful lot of power there for only land factories, so we'll see what he's going to do with that, whether he's going to shift up to air on T1 power or if he's going to leave the air to the player with the hydro, which would make a little bit of sense, but you don't want to get outplayed and let the enemy pepper you with bombers. A little bit of movement down in the bottom right here. We've got a little bit of a raid coming in from Super. He's got a striker coming out. It's going to start hitting that FAM, and it's going to be reasonably even. There is, of course, a Snoop assisting, just adding a couple more DPS to that, and that will mean that Super comes out just on top, and that Selene is going to go down. So a net win there for Super, and he's actually got an engineer who's very, very cheekily going to come and grab this mech, and that is very, very close to Jogi's starting position, so I can expect them to contest that a little bit. There's a couple more FAMs out in the front here for Jogi, and we'll see what he manages to do with those. Probably just trying to guard this mech's position, and the engineer is going to be there in just a minute and get that mech underway. On the scoreboard, we have got Super and Philip J. Fry both sitting on 19 mass per tick. We've got Ish coming up next at 15 and Jogi on 11. So interestingly, the player in one of the original starting positions with quite a lot of reclaim. There is a good boulder there. There's also some more reclaim floating around over here, which he looks like he has picked up. He is actually lagging a little bit on the scoreboard, which is interesting. And we have actually got a transport out for Ish, so I will be wondering what he's going to do with that. There will be a reasonable amount of land online. Actually, of course, what he's going to be doing with that is a drop up onto these two plateaus here, because there are 4 more mexes which he can claim and a bit of reclaim from the civilian structures. So far, we don't seem to have a transport out for Jogi, who did get the first air up for the south team, and no, well, there is actually an air factory now, but he is not building a transport just yet. He's just going to go with trying to bomb out some of Ish's forces. The ACUs for Ish and for Philip J. Fry are both in the centre. Did they come into contact with one another? They probably did, just a little bit, judging by the small amount of health which has been knocked off those guys. So just forcing each other back, just giving each other a reminder that they can't move too far without being under fire in enemy territory. Alright, we've got a little bit of a push across this way. It looks like Jogi is going to just be able to outgun what Super has in the area. There's just a couple of FAMs, there's a couple of strikers, I should say, and there's a few more FAMs in the area. The engineer does go down. There's still a radar, though, which gives a little bit of intel, and that is going to help him out. The engineer coming in now for Jogi, and he's going to try and grab that mech point. The tank versus tank battle is going to go just in Super's favour, so that is going to lend another little net win to Super and let him retain control of the area just a little bit. Although that mech does go down, the radar is still up. Super doing actually a pretty nice job of gathering forces on the front line here. He's got, well, pretty even numbers, and there's a nice little line there for Jogi. So both players not quite able to push forward at this time. And on the left here, we've got the 2 ACUs continually coming into contact, and they are just going to wander around a little bit and not really do too much damage. Of course, it is a fairly tight lane. You won't be able to push too much in the way of T1 up this lane with the ACU sitting there. The mechs will come under fire, which is going to hurt Ish's eco just a little bit, bringing him to the bottom of the pile. He's sitting on 17 mass per tick, which is quite a distance behind Philip J. Fry, who is way out in front with 31 at present. So Philip J. Fry doing a fantastic job, and that looks like it's mainly due to mechs upgrades. So he is sequentially upgrading those mixes to T2. He's got plenty of power online, so he will be able to sustain that. He has got, well, 425, so he's not top on the scoreboard for power, but plenty in terms of being able to get those mixes upgraded. He doesn't have quite as much on the front line here as Ish does, and he probably doesn't have quite enough eco left after all of those T2 upgrades to grab any upgrade on the ACU. So Ish will be getting the gun upgrade, and that's going to be a little bit problematic for Philip J. Fry. He's sunk all of his eco into those mexes. It doesn't leave a lot left for the front line, and a gun ACU in this narrow little neck here is going to be very, very problematic For him, we've got a little bit of air over Super's base, so it looks like the South team is in reasonably good shape for air over here, but it does look like Ish has got a superiority of interceptors over Philip J. Fry, so he's hovering at the moment. He will be able to take out these interceptors as they come out of the factory, although he's down to just 2, so he is losing them. How is that ACU upgrade doing? It is sitting at about 60%. So that is going to be very, very dangerous once it completes. There is an air scout out here for Philip J. Fry, so he will see that the ACU is under upgrade, although the scout does just go down to those interceptors. So that does mean that he may have got eyes on, maybe not, and that will mean that Ish could still be undetected with that gun upgraded, and Philip J. Fry is going to have to respond to that. He's actually moving his ACU back. I think he may be aware that there is something going on. He is going to just pull back. He's going to put together a new defensive position. He's actually throwing up an air turret, so he's a little bit concerned about the air game from Ish at the moment, and I'm not sure if he's quite aware the gun upgrade has finished. No, actually that's T2. I was talking absolute bollocks because that was the T2 upgrade, so it's going to be a T2 PD creep into Philip Fry's base instead of a gun ACU. We've got a bit of an engagement happening here from Super. He is pushing down towards Joigi's main base. It looks like he's got a little bit of an advantage there, and Joigi's just pulling back a little bit, and that will mean that there's a little bit more map control there for Super. And Super, of course, still owns this area here. The engineer does go down just before the mass extractor completes, so that will be a problem for him. He's not getting any mass out of owning the area, and of course there's actually a completely untaken mass extractor over there. We can see Ish has managed to move in on the civilian structures. He's taken a couple of those mass extractors and doing very well, and it looks like Joigi is going to do the same thing down the south. He's got his 1 artillery to take out the PD, and he's got some engineers ready to go once the PD is taken care of. It looks like Ish is actually building a reasonably formidable force on the front line here. He's moving up with his ACU. Oh, he does have the gun upgrade as well. So that is a pretty dangerous commander right now. And Philip J. Fry is being defeated. What is going on there? Is that a disconnect? I have no idea what on earth. Was that an accidental control K? I'm not sure, but it was a little bit of a lost cause in any case. The ACU was going to go down to the T2 gun ACU from Ish, and that was pretty much the end of that one. That is a little bit unfortunate, and I'm not quite sure what is going on in chat there because I can't read it. So if anybody would like to translate, feel free to do so. And that is the end of Philip J. Fry, which means, unfortunately, for the JEW clan, it is now 2 versus 1. Ish is free to move in, take the reclaim, take the base, and that is going to be the end of that. Let's just speed this up a little bit because it is now going to be a very, very uphill battle for Joigi. There is not a lot of chance. If that was an accidental control K, that is a little bit of a problem because he could have held out for a little bit longer and taken a bit of the pressure off Joigi, but unfortunately it means that everything for Ish is actually going to head straight down and cause problems. And of course they are Zoes that Ish has got in the mix, so those Zoes will scoot across the water, come right into the back of Joigi's base and lay down some hurt on the power gens, on the mass extractors, and very, very quickly eliminate what he's got there. There are some Ilshivers in a transport, so it looks like he's going to try and push out and cause a little bit of damage. The Ilshivers are heading straight into the back, so it looks like he'll be trading some Ilshivers for the Zoes that are going to appear here, and he is going to do a little bit of damage. The interceptors spot that, the transport goes down, but the Ilshivers do make landfall, and they are free to get going. There are some Ilshis coming out now, so there's one Ilshiver, there's a Tech 1 point defense, and there's a couple of Thams in the area as well. So the Ilshivers are not going to last too long there from Joigi. That drop could have been a little bit more successful if there was absolutely no pressure, if there was some pressure applied to Ish, but right now Ish is free to do just about anything he wants and will clean up those. On the front line, Super's got his ACU. He's managed to throw down a triad, so that's going to lay down a bunch of fire. He's got some Mongeese on the field as well. They're going to lay down some ranged aggression against the Ilshivers, and very quickly all of those Ilshis go down, and Super's ACU has actually switched to reclaim duty, and he's actually got a drone, and Joigi gives up at this point, and that is the end of that. So we can see a couple more points going into the coffers for the UEF clan, and unfortunately for JEW, it just wasn't meant to be. Right. Okay, so a very unfortunate turn of events there. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Hopefully, I think there might have been some chat around what actually happened. And that was the end of the game for Philip J. Fry, and then Joigi obviously joined him in the afterlife fairly soon after, and that was the end of that. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is go and look for one of the 3v3 games that we have scheduled, and let's see what we can find. So, 3 versus 3 is on the Stairway to Heaven map. We have a Takedo, Bloodere, and Washi game, and that is against the noobs. We've got a Nexus, Mephi, and Mech Machine against Morax, Haznard, and Jolie. That could be interesting. We might actually go to that. We haven't seen much of Nexus Reality, although we haven't seen any Takedo yet either, so it's a little bit of a toss-up between which of those guys we'll go to. In fact, I might actually favour the E-Clan just a little bit, because this is their first foray into the IGC. Like we mentioned, dropouts and buys have meant that up until week 3, that's this week, there have not been any games for the E-Clan, so we are probably going to see what we can find. So that is actually on the Stairway to Heaven map, which is kind of interesting, and let's go and find that. Alright. Searching underway, and we've got an Empire versus SNF game here in the replay vault, so we'll load that up and hopefully not have any issues with the replay vault at all this time, and get some Stairway to Heaven underway. Okay, so the game is loading up. Let's switch across to that right now and see how the Empire is going to get on against the noobs. Alright, so here we go. We have got a left versus right, so it's going to be in 3 fairly distinct lanes, I would suspect. And on the left, we have got the Empire clans. We've got Washi, who is currently called Envious. He has opted for UEF. He is going to throw down his first land factory, then he'll be grabbing his mexes, and he'll be rushing his hydro. In the centre, we have got Bloodere. He has gone none other than Cybran, because Bloodere loves his Cybran. He is going first air, which could be very, very interesting, and he is going to get the adjacency on the Hydra for that. He is then going for some power. He'll get his core mixes up, but he will need a lot of power to run that first air factory. And let's just see what comes out first. We have got a first scout and then engineer. So not actually opting for a bomber. I think he's identified that he does need at least one engineer to get the Hydro started, so that will delay the bomber just a little bit, and probably give away the fact that he has gone first air, because that scout is going to be overhead momentarily, and that will actually give the noobs a little bit of a chance to build some AA. Last but not least, for the Empire clan, we have got Takedo. He is in his customary green colour and customary clan Cybran, because he doesn't know any other clans exist. He has got his first land factory done, he's grabbed some core mixes, and he has just about finished that hydro. So he'll have enough power to get himself underway any time. Alright, so we can see that for the noob clan, we have got Silent Noob, currently rated 1700. He has actually opted for Aeon. He has got his first land factory down, and he is going to get his power. He's got his hydro, he's got his core mixes, and he's getting some more factories underway. For the next player in the noob clan, we have got Chosen. He is currently rated, well, it says 1 in the scoreboard. I'm sure that's not his rating, so we'll go with whatever. Okay, so he is Cybran. He has got his first land factory down. He has got his second air factory underway. He's got his core mixes, and his eco is up and running. And overrated noob is going to go second air as well after grabbing the hydro, and he's going to continue on with more PGNs. Of course, a hydro is worth 5 PGNs. He does need another PGN or 2 before he has got enough to run that air factory at full capacity while running everything else. So it looks like Bloodere didn't actually manage to do anything with first bomber, so unfortunately that's a little bit of a waste for him, perhaps going first air, but he did get those eyes on early in the piece. Now, interestingly, let's have a look at the matchups for the bottom here, because we've got an Aeon player against a Cybran player. Now, that could be interesting because the Aeon player does, of course, have hover. So Auroras will be able to scoot right up the center here and come out on the other beach. So it does mean it might be a little bit of a hard time for Takedo to play against that. And then in the north, we've actually got a UEF player, so there'll be no T1 hover against UEF. So again, no T1 hover. So we're probably not going to see much in the way of hover battles, but there'll be a little bit of skirmish around the outside of those ponds. We can see a few interceptors out and about now, and we can see that early response actually. There's a bunch of T1 mobile AA because we did see that first scout from Bladeer, which actually could have been a little bit of a diversionary tactic. By throwing that scout out first, he forced all these guys to throw some AA up and focus on being able to defeat any early bomber, and then the early bomber never eventuated. We can see here for Chosen there is a T1 static AA, there's the mobile AA down there for Silent Noob, and well, there was a shift to air very quickly. I'm not sure if that was planned, but in any case, it does look like Bladeer managed to get the noobs to spend a little bit more than they otherwise would have on air defense, and that is a little bit of a smart play if that was indeed his plan, or a little bit of a fail if he forgot to actually do the bomber. A little bit of a kill there for Bladeer. He's getting his units up into the engineers for Chosen, and well, causing a little bit of a problem, and definitely getting a little bit more map control than his counterpart. The air does look reasonably even at the moment. We've got a few interceptors out from both sides. Nothing really distinctive about either side, apart from the engineer drop here. So there's a bunch of mass on the plateau, and they're going to get the mechs as well. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a win there in terms of economy for Washi. That's going to put him a little bit ahead of Overrated Noob, and just be a little bit of a problem. Of course, you can drive up there with tanks. The drop wasn't completely necessary because the engineers could walk up there if they wanted, or drive if they've got treads. Alright, Bladeer actually doing a really nice job of getting up into Chosen's base. There is a single Mantis going to make it through. The Mantis there from Chosen actually bypassing that and letting him through. So a little bit of a mistake there from Chosen, and he is focusing probably a little bit more on this Mantis up front, and he's currently just taking fire from one because there is a hill in the way, and we can see exactly how the physics-based engine for Subcom works. Both these guys taking it out on the dirt. So not too effective there, and actually a nice little force here for Overrated Noob. He's actually got more than enough online to be able to push forward and take out the expanding engineer, and that engineer does actually need to get to work on the reclaim because there's a lot of reclaim right here, and if he doesn't start grabbing that, it will go into the coffers of Overrated Noob. So we'll see who's first to grab that, and the ACUs look to be starting to move towards the center. Now, I actually am really not familiar with this map at all. I don't think I've ever seen anything played on it. I don't think there's many plays in the vault at all, so an interesting pick there. And I wonder how these guys are going to get on with it, because they may have practiced it or may be completely new. I'm not sure what will be the case, but in any case, these guys are probably finding their feet for the first time on this map, and it could be interesting. Looks like Bladeer is managing to secure the center reasonably well. He's got a T1 PD up, he's got a bunch of Mantis in the area. That's going to push back Chosen's little force there, and that's going to keep the main amount of economy in the center here for Bladeer, and there's actually a ton of reclaim, again, more rocks. So it looks like the map control is pretty critical on this because there is thousands of mass in the center, and he really needs to, well, Chosen really needs to be pushing up and trying to contest for that mass. Same for these other guys. So we've got the units coming up there for Overrated Noob, very nicely contesting the mass. We can see it's all still sitting there, and those strikers are now coming under fire. So those guys will go down and not be able to do too much more damage, but they did take out the engineer. An engineer now coming in for Overrated Noob, but of course that's not going to last long. The bomber or the strikers are going to pick that up and cause problems. We've also got another little lane opening up at the top. We've got a factory up here for Overrated Noob, and well, actually it looks like just drops so far for Washi, and those guys are going to start pushing towards each other and trying to cause as much problem as they can. Actually, that is a drone, which is very nice. Unfortunately, there is an interceptor, and that is able to target the drone and takes that guy out, so that will be the end of that for Washi. So no excellent drone play, unfortunately for him. There is a transport now, though, bringing some engineers in. Those guys are probably going to get straight to work on reclaiming all of those rocks, and that's going to give a little bit more eco advantage to the Empire clan. So far in the economy stakes, we've got Washi sitting out in, well, not quite in front. He's on 43. Yeah, just managing to nose ahead slightly above Blue Deer, who's on 41. We've got 33 there for, hang on, what have we got? 33 for Takedo. And the Noob Clan, unfortunately, languishing a little bit on 25, 29, and 25 mass per tick. So a definite advantage there, which gives the Empire Clan the ability to get some T2 max upgrades, T2 factory upgrades, or even commander upgrades for basically free at this point, because they've got that much economy over the SNF clan. So a little bit of a problem. And interestingly, Takedo has actually opted for Navy. So he has thrown down a naval factory. He has got a frigate out. And that's just going to cruise around here. I'm not quite sure how tall those banks are. It looks like the frigate will be able to fire up onto the units which are on the land. So the frigates will be able to do a nice job of defending against incoming units. The ACU is right here though, and that is pushing up with a bunch of Auroras. They're going to be a little bit problematic. There are a couple of PGNs and Takedo's ACU up the front here. Obviously Takedo finding himself a little bit short of power and needing to construct those with his ACU. In the centre, we've got some artillery now focusing on Bladier's point defence. Bladier actually looking surprisingly scant on units in the centre. He's got a bunch of Mantis back here. He has got an upgrade going down on his comm, but it is paused at the moment, so not the greatest position to be in, and he does need to probably get a little bit more into that. He does have assistance from those engineers, so the upgrade will still be progressing, but not as fast as it could be. Those artillery is managing to take out that point defence, and that means that the units here for Chosen are actually going to be able to push up the centre and be a little bit of a problem for Bladier. There is a little bit of eco up here, and that will go down to a single T1 artillery if Bladier doesn't respond. And it looks like he is actually responding now. He's throwing those Mantis in. He's going to bring those guys in and try and cause a bit of a problem. The Mex is probably going to go down, but he might be able to defend that. We've got some ACU on ACU action down in the south here. Silent Noob actually taking an absolute beating because he's got the frigates hitting him as well. So he is down into the yellow. He's on 6,900 HP. Takedo up on 8,400. So not a lot in it, but Silent Noob definitely down into the yellow. And Takedo's forces have actually vaporized. Now this is completely unsurprising from our resident Beetle Sniper, because Silent Noob has got no AA on, and in come a couple of Beetles. Now, is that going to be enough? There are only 2 on the transport, and well, that's probably not going to kill him outright, but it will mean that he's going to be very, very vulnerable to the ACU. Those Beetles moving in now, 1 hits, and actually that is going to be enough, and a Beetle snipe. So I think this tournament is complete now for Takedo, because he has achieved his Beetle snipe, and that is the end of that one. So unfortunately, Silent Noob just having no AA on the field. Well, actually, interestingly, he had some interceptors back there, but they were not in play. They were not able to stop that transport from coming in. In come a couple of Fire Beetles, and that is the end of that. And so now this puts Empire in a very, very nice position, because Takedo is now absolutely free to eco up, to do any plays that he likes, because he has no opposition. There will be absolutely no pressure applied to him whatsoever, and that is going to be pretty much the start of a slippery slope against the SNF clan, and Empire will be able to take it out. The last of the forces here getting mopped up by Bladier's Mantis, and unfortunately that is not going to take out the extra eco. So Chosen just looking a little bit problematic here, and it looks like he's trying to enter into a point defense war. Of course, being Cybran, Cerberus turret's not the best ever for point defense wars, but when you both got him, it's actually kind of even. So that will mean that Chosen is going to put his first one up. It is now down to half health already from taking fire during construction. It is going to go down pretty quickly. In fact, it is choosing to shoot the ground instead of the other PD, which is a little bit of a fatal mistake, and down it goes. Chosen will be able to complete that second one. His ACU is still taking a little bit of fire, but he's actually looking in pretty good shape still. That Cerberus turret will complete. He can then build another one back on the wreck for the 50% bonus in construction. But unfortunately, there's already 2 online for Bladier, and a third one going to be online any moment now, and that is going to force Chosen back, and that is going to be the end of his forward position. There is another one back here, which may be able to help a little bit, and Takedo is free to do what he wants, and what Takedo wants is Fire Beetles. In come the Fire Beetles, and he's trying to reclaim them, and 1, 2, 3, 4, boom! And that is the end of Chosen. So Takedo is going to be extremely pleased with himself right now, because that is the second Fire Beetle kill, and it looks like, well, Overrated Noob is trying to do something to respond. He is responding in kind. He's got a Ghetto gunship. He's got 3 regular gunships, and those guys are going to come in and start trying to take out Bloodier's ACU. Bloodier managing to get a little bit of T1 AA up, but there is plenty of interceptors in the mix, and is going to wipe that out pretty quickly. And in fact, all the interceptors back here for Overrated probably could have made the difference, but they were not in position. They were not able to get in there and do anything, and that is the end of that. So the Ghetto gunship is going to just settle down, and Overrated Noob is, I presume, going to control K. I didn't see if there was anything up that way. It was either another Beetle snipe from Takedo or a control K, because that was a little bit futile at that point. Alright, some fantastic Beetle snipes there. So that is, I think the Empire clan will be patting Takedo on the back right now, because that was, well, hardly unexpected from Takedo, our resident Beetle sniper. So that is the 3 versus 3 on Stairway to Heaven for the Empire clan versus SNF. That has gone down. That is a win to the Empire clan. That is more points for them, so that is another 6 points. Of course, the 2v2 worth twice as many points as the 1v1s. Oh, sorry, we're talking about 3v3. 6 points. Twice as many points as the 1v1s, and that is a couple more points on the board for the Empire clan. Alright, we're going to shift up to our 4 versus 4. We've got a couple of options here. We actually might go to the Break-A-Wish Foundation against the Voice of Reason clan for this one, because we've got a lineup of Nexus of Reality, Mephi, Mech Machine, and Postal against Hazarded, Soviet Pride, Jolie, and Kaiser. So that is going to be a reasonably interesting matchup. So let's go and see if we can find in our replay vault that 4 versus 4 game on Wonder Open, and it looks like it's there, and unfortunately we get an error downloading. I wish that was not the case. So perhaps we'll be able to get one of the guys to post a replay into the forums at a later point and grab that one. The other map, well, we've got Joegi, Gimes, Hazael, and Jazzy against Commander Adama, Super, Noir, and Apophanas. So I think we might give the Empire clan a little bit more airtime, because this is, of course, their first round, and let's jump into the Wonder Open game for them, and hopefully we're not going to get any more corrupt replays or problems. Actually, that's not in the vault yet, so I wonder if those guys are still actually in there. Let's have a quick look in the chat, and, well, where are these guys? Oh no, they're still in the lobby. It looks like we might be a little bit ahead of ourselves. So what we'll jump into is another one on the Stairway to Heaven, so that'll get a little bit more airtime for that new map. Well, I'm not sure if the map itself is new, but I've never seen it, so it's reasonably new to me. And we'll jump over to Mephi's game, so that'll be, well, he's not actually in the IGC channel, so who else have we got?